Hello, so I'm streaming a bit earlier today than I normally do on sort of a Sunday or a weekday, but I probably can only do sort of 30 or 40 minutes of a stream, so I thought I'd start now. So, if nobody's been following the news, it's just got silly in the UK now. Basically, what they're doing is students have gone back to university. They're getting totally ripped off on courses, a lot of them, because what they're basically having is where it's meant to be a combination of online learning and lectures, and like physical stuff, and they're all basically being told it's all being done as a lecture. So like, open university, but not as good. And they're basically under house arrest. They're literally not allowed to leave their blocks in a lot of university. Not to go shopping, not to get a corona test. No, you physically can't leave. And then other universities are also doing things like you're banned from going to the pubs. If you go to a pub, you might be expelled. It's like, who comes up with rules like this and thinks that, that's a good way of approaching it? But hello to everybody anyway. Already a strange comment on there. Doesn't take him long, does it? We'll keep it on topic of the stream, though. Are they even allowed to leave their accommodation where she is, though, Mr. Live Era? Because it's like stupid, because in a lot of places they're literally under house arrest. But yeah, it's like the fact that they're, literally not getting anything they're paying for. Oh yeah, I heard that. I heard that they were saying that in some places, because they can't get like a food delivery slot, they have to rely on the university basically giving them rations. And in one place, I don't know if it was Manchester or whatever, the students basically didn't get any say in what they were given. So Muslim students and vegetarians were being given ham sandwiches. It's like, I can see it funny in a darkly kind of gallows humor way, but it's literally the fact that they are paying all this money and then essentially being put in a prison is kind of yeah, it's not like an official one. It's just the one Miltech or somebody do. Yeah, it's Miltech, isn't it? Yeah. The only problem I have with this is it makes me look like I've kind of got tits to a degree, because it's just because your pecs look really big with this. I don't know why it's strict on being a vertical camo. For whatever reason. Does that? Well, there should be halal foods, Altrix, but here's the problem. It's like with some of these fucking restrictions, they're literally just giving people whatever they want to give them. Not taking into dietary considerations and whatever. Well, until I can afford it, Ivan, nothing will go on with that. Obviously, I save up every month towards it. But, the saving's going all right, but until I get one, no project starts, really. Because as I said, I'm not building one in the garden or whatever. I'm buying a pre-built Cold War one and then just restoring it and probably converting it to be fully off-grid, I imagine. I've been looking into that, and if you spend about $5,000, it seems that you can get solar stuff that should be good enough for nearly all the year, powering, anything you want to have plugged in. Yeah, but his one was building a bunker, not buying and restoring one. There's a bit of a difference. Because the thing is, you'd already need the land to do what he did. And don't get me wrong, his one is very cool. But it always comes up on here where I think people are missing the point of, the difference between buying something that already exists and restoring it, as opposed to having land that you can build on. Yeah, but it'd be a bit of a tight fit, Altrix, because ROC posts were literally, although I think they were designed to hold 4 people at capacity, it would be uncomfortable, I think, for more than one person to be in there for any period of time. I don't think Calvin and Hatch is for sale, TXC Gaming, and I imagine if it was for sale, it'd be several million at least because of the size of it. Yeah, I only heard a little bit about that earlier today, but did it start off like a border conflict thing? But yeah, it's barely on the news over here, weirdly. It's like everybody's talking about Corona for obvious reasons and like other stuff, and it's literally you have to really look to even see what's going on. I suppose, Ivan, that's because the Russians or the Soviets built a lot of them, didn't they? No, I don't know a book called Fallout. What's the book about Fallout? I know, like, obviously the Fallout games, and I know what Fallout is, as in radioactive contamination, as ash and stuff like that. Oh, yeah, so where each country, Ivan, says, no, we own this region, then the other one goes, no, we own it. A bit like what's going on with China and India and all sorts of other places where that sort of stuff happens. I imagine, though, military item review, that will literally vary by state, though, won't it? Because everything like that seems to vary by state in America. But yeah, the crazy thing though, like I was saying about this in the UK, is it's literally student. I'm not a student, by the way. I never went to university just because I considered it a bit of a waste of money at the time. You know, and it's now a way more waste of money. It's just the idea that you pay all that money and then they're literally like, no, you can't leave your house, or you get expelled. Basically, we're going to hire security guards to make sure you don't leave your house. And oh yeah, all those lectures you're meant to be having, you're not getting them. No, you've given us the money though, haven't you? Imagine getting like 30 to 50 grand in debt for basically a missold experience. Yeah, the thing is, Altrix, it depends what course you're taking, though. That's the way I look at it. Because there's like some university courses here where the people need to do them for certain jobs, and they're probably like good life skill courses. The problem is that a lot of people here go to university just with, oh, I can get drunk and party, you know, and then they get in debt to do that. That sounds interesting, Heyman. Sorry, Hayden. It sounds a bit like that episode of The Simpsons with a comet where everybody's trying to cram into their like Fallout shout, whatever it is. Yeah, the thing is, Monk, I would never go to one of those protests just because it's filled with people who are obviously a bit nuts. Because the thing is, I agree with some of the people on those protests, you know, about the idea that because not everybody there is an anti-vaxxer crazy. Some of the people protesting are just saying that, you know, basically lots of civil liberties are being taken away and nobody's getting a say on it. I can kind of agree with that, but the problem is that they're there with anti-vaxxers and the people saying Corona doesn't exist. That's an alright price for an owl tricks, isn't it? I don't know what they actually cost because you never see them for sale over here. Imagine a Minuteman or one of the other similar silos would be incredibly expensive, like the old Titan silos. Now, the nice thing for me, Ivan, at least, is if I get an ROC post, it's very small to restore, so the restoration cost shouldn't be too silly. All right, Hype. Yeah, it was already brought up on this stream. It's barely on the news over here, which is really silly. It's literally like you have to go to, I think, like, you know, like European or like Asian kind of news things to even see it. Yeah, like saying about dumb people in comments, though, a bit like that. Obviously, I know that was in real life, but I saw a YouTube comment earlier on a video where the person did two comments right next to each other, the same account. One of them saying like what a brilliant video it was, and the other saying the person who made this video is fucking stupid because blah blah blah. Also, it's actually like tanks and like aircraft being shot down, so it's actually quite serious. Then it's not just one of those people shooting over the border at each other because. Yeah, I imagine though, Ivan saying that the entrance tunnels on those aren't all that dissimilar to like the Calvin and Hatch style, entrance tunnel where it's literally like a massive blast tunnel. Truth, Love and Honour, not that good in my opinion. We've had the issue recently where they completely flip-flop on like Corona stuff, where they say we won't lock anything down and then they lock it down, or vice versa. And at the moment, as I said, I'm not a student, but they're putting most of university students essentially under house arrest to the point where it's really questionable that they actually have the authority to do it. Like, I'd say it's worse than a lot of the stuff that went on during the actual proper lockdown, but it's specifically just targeted at students. So basically, it's the TLDR is basically if you're a university student at a lot of universities, you're in your student accommodation, and they said, right, you're not allowed to leave your room or like your communal area. Food is literally going to be delivered to you. You're not even going to get to choose what the food is, and you can't leave. Full stop. You can't leave to get a corona test. You can't leave to go shopping. I assume you can't leave for a doctor's appointment either. I mean, obviously, if somebody was ill enough they need an ambulance, that would be different. But it's still, I find it very questionable, especially as well because it's kind of like a private company doing that in a sense. Universities. It's not like even the government doing it. Go on eBay. Yeah, as I said, that's why it says house arrest in the title, because that's essentially what it is. But yeah, the other thing as well is obviously the uni's completely screwing students on the courses at the moment as well. Because like they're doing the thing where apparently students, when they signed up and paid for the course, were told, like what they'd get in the course, and they're not even delivering on it. Okay, so yeah, that's a good compromise. If you leave, you're kicked out, right? Yeah, so basically you are forced to stay, aren't you? Because that's kind of like saying, wow, you can stay here, but if you leave, you go to prison. Well, that's not an actual choice, is it? Yeah, exactly. You have to pay for it rather than it being free. There's yeah, it's just kind of insane. Like the more I hear about it, the more you think like, is this reality? Oh, has everybody been following the complete failure of the UK coronavirus app as well? The thing is, Bruno, a lot of them didn't sign an agreement saying that. That's the whole point. They're literally not getting what they signed up for. Because this is why there's like legal action about it now, because a lot of them are literally not getting what they signed up for. Yeah, and that's the thing, Boldingtowski. How much would it cost in comparison to do the same course better with the Open University for that kind of online-only learning? Because they're literally just getting an Open University thing, but less quality at a way higher price. Yeah, I bet so, Richard. Well, only one of the problems, Tony, because one of the big problems of the app was that basically 70% of tests wouldn't register through the app. There's also the thing of you can't sign out of a lot of places. So if you go into a restaurant or whatever and scan their QR code, apparently you're literally logged in for like 12 hours there. Open University, Gavin, is way cheaper than normal university. I know several people who've done both. Open University is way cheaper. And you also have to bear in mind accommodation fees and all that. Generally, most people from Open University do it at home. They're not paying, for like overpriced student accommodation that you're literally forced to use if you want to go to that uni. Because that was what a lot of the callers were saying earlier on LBC, that basically to get in at some unis, you had to pre-book their kind of university housing. Yeah, but here's the problem of it. That applies to things like physics. It applies to things like people doing doctorates in things. It's easy to laugh if it was literally like, gender studies, women's studies, liberal arts, all that sort of stuff. But unfortunately, it's literally any course through university, it seems. Because here's the thing, my attitude on it is that, I think uni degrees that are helpful for everybody, like things involving medicine and sciencey stuff, that should be the stuff that is either cheaper or subsidized by the government, like a grant. I think if you want to do some stupid Mickey Mouse degree, that's when you should pay all of the money towards it yourself, because it's a waste of time and money. But sadly, it's all just stupidly expensive for everything. Yeah, well, I completely agree with you, Hype, and it's also the toxicity that comes with all of these, with the kind of weird brainwashing it does to people. Oh yeah, they were also saying, weren't they, that students will be banned from going home at Christmas, and a lot of parents are like, fuck that, I'm just picking my kid up. Yeah, you just said it, Military Bushcraft Island, but yeah, it's the same thing here. It's like, who comes up with this stuff? That's a shame, Lewis, because archaeology is actually something interesting, isn't it? And it's important towards history. But yeah, there's lots of things, isn't there, that's really stupid like that, where you can only get into certain jobs. Even one of my friends has a problem where he's got a certain qualification from university, and he has the issue of places saying, well, basically, we want it for you to get a job here, you need to have this qualification that is nearly the exact same one on a slightly different course, basically. But because you have basically a first on a really, really similar course, no, you're completely ineligible. Go and pay for that course. See you, Hype. I have no idea, Military Bushcraft. Like I said, I finished at school ages ago, and it's like they use like the 1 to 10 system, don't they, for stuff now? Not like A, B, C, D, and all that. Because I don't even understand the new number system. When I did stuff, it was like A star, A, B, C, D, E, F, all that. But yeah. No, I never went to university, Oscar, because at the time I could have gone to university. That was when all the tuition fee hikes came in. So even if I had an interest in doing a particular course, I was like, I'm not getting into loads of debt for something I might not even be able to use towards a job. There's a clock. Read the clock. I thought 10 was the best. I really don't know, though. All right, Marcus. Are you under arrest, Marcus? Are you locked in a university room, or is it all right in Brighton? Oh, all right, that's all right then. So you're in a lucky place where you can actually leave your room, can you? But yeah, there's some real horror stories coming from some of these unis at the moment. But yeah, the app is broken. Lots of students are under house arrest essentially, and I'm sure it's just going to get worse because they keep saying it can't get any worse, and it does. It's what does the Soviet optimist say? Things can't possibly get any worse. As far as I'm aware, I've not heard of a JS list chem suit, so I'm pretty sure I don't have one. It's the one I always have Henry after a few months. I was just going to get rid of him as well, Marcus. He needs to work on his material. I had somebody at work say, "Oh, did you just get out of a concentration camp?" That's darker and sort of more funny, I guess, in a way. Yeah, that's very dodgy, isn't it, Fangsterno? Somebody basically with a lot of shares in a company pushing for that company as a government type person. Because I think that really does deduct kind of trust in right person with a Cyrillic name. I'm afraid I can't pronounce. Are you somewhere where you can get Soviet OKB suits or whatever they're called, or OZK suits? What they called OZK OKB suits, something like that. It's the OZK suit, isn't it? OZK suit, is that the one? Yeah, OZK suits. Can you get those? Because Soviet OZK suits are pretty alright if you can get one cheaply. I've never had the chance to test with Vanu. Again, it's one of those things. If it turned up at a good price, I'd get one. But when they're really expensive and like really expensive on postage, I don't normally bother. Well, I have no problem with people being pro-vaccination because that's sensible. Hopefully you get them all right, Eltrix. Yeah, I've seen lots of horse masks. I just never bought one just because of the price. The only problem with vaccines in general is if they're not tested properly or they really cut the cost mass producing them. There's nothing wrong with vaccines in general. They're very, very good in general. The amount of lives they save and like horrible illnesses they get rid of. But yeah, the problem is quite rightfully with vaccines is if there's kind of nepotism or whatever it's called going on with like the creation of them, where certain companies are awarded contracts because they're friends with certain people, that kind of thing. Yeah, I'm not going to be downloading it, jackass, until they blatantly get rid of every fault with it. Until then, no, because it's a waste of my battery and data. And even as somebody that has been following all the guidelines to do with stuff, where you have to start using an app to get access to services, that's where I'm very skeptical of it, especially when our government has a track record of fucking everything up. No, it's meant to be contact tracing. That's the whole point. But the issue is with the app over here is it's not just a tracing app. It's literally broken. So my main concern, in all honesty, with using the app in the UK at the moment would be, because of how poorly made it is, would basically be, say I've got on my phone, I don't come into contact with anybody that has corona. I get told I have to self-isolate for 2 weeks for no reason. That's my big worry with it. Because then that's literally financially, employment-wise screwing you over. And I know there's meant to be rules at the moment, so you have to be paid by your employer if you keep getting time off because you might be positive and all that. But I still doubt a lot of employers are going to like that. Second wave sort of thing at the moment, VL. And lots of silly measures being brought in to combat it, which are probably going to backfire. Yeah, this is the thing, Lewis. Like I was saying, if the app worked perfectly, I think in theory it's a good thing. Because a lot of countries have had good apps, which don't take any private data. But, they literally can just track sort of probability of infection to do with tests and everything else. The problem is the one here is just apparently so horribly broken that I imagine you'll either be at high risk and they'll tell you you're low risk. You're literally at low risk and they're telling you you're infected, you need to get a test and stop going to work or whatever. Or your details will be lost, or it's going to drain all the data on your phone or the battery on your phone. Yeah, it doesn't surprise me because the curfew on pubs is stupid anyway. Because if people want to go and get drunk, they'll just go out earlier. But it's stuff like that's annoying for me. Because say I'm working shifts and I want to meet up with somebody who works a different job at different shifts or a different day of different shifts, that can make it awkward. Because I'm sure lots of you have gone out to the pub with mates or whatever, and you've done it in the evening because it's convenient if you're all doing different jobs to just get together in the evening. Can't do that now because if somebody finishes at 7 p.m., there's not much time. Doesn't surprise me, Rajiv, but stay safe. But yeah, there's that, Lewis, and obviously, again, the virus just doesn't magically start affecting people at 10 p.m., does it? And it also is apparently screwing over restaurants where they've worked really hard to do social distancing measures. All the tables are spaced apart. You get table service where everybody's wearing masks, handing you your food. So the places that have gone to a lot of effort of, covering all this, they're still having to close at 10 p.m. Well, AG, as long as you got the mask you want, that's good. Well, getting paid to have swabs is pretty good. There's nothing like that here. So, as it's getting more serious, Rajiv, they're not wearing masks. That's strange. Until we have a vaccine, Oliver, or enough people have caught it and gained immunity, yeah, you're not going to get rid of it. Yeah, if there were police without masks on, thanks, Dono, that's completely stupid. All the footage I saw, all the cops had masks on, but yeah, police have to wear masks. Well, yeah, we'll have to find out if it works properly. I mean, apparently it works. It's just we don't know about long-term health effects yet because they're rushing stage 3 trials of it. But I hope it works. Obviously, the faster vaccines are made, the more lives they save and, businesses they save, which directly links into people's health, their wealth, all the better. I wish the Russians all the best of it and any other countries developing vaccines. Yeah, because just to point out why it's not an anti-vaxxer thing to be worried about a rushed vaccine, because like what Lewis is saying, basically, vaccines have clinical trials specifically to try and work out if there's any kind of dangerous effects that might not be worked out straight away. Right, a good example of this is not vaccines, but does everybody in the chat know what thalidomide was? Or thalidomide, however it's pronounced. But basically, that was it was for morning after sickness, I think, for pregnant women. The problem was it deformed their children because there wasn't enough research done into it before it was just mass handed out. And then obviously it was covered up a bit as well. So that's why you really have to have proper trials of medicine, because something that could inherently seem like it's doing good could be doing a lot of harm in the long run. And there's been other things like thalidomide as well that have caused massive issues, basically, where it was a drug that was meant to be completely safe, but then years down the line they were realizing there was lots and lots and lots of problems caused to like maybe a woman's children or like certain cancers or whatever else. Yeah, that's the one, Richard. Yeah, it's lucky, Justin, if she didn't take it then. I think my mum said around the time she was born, like my grandma could potentially have been given it, and she luckily wasn't. But all right, have fun, Altrix. Have a good evening. But yeah, it's that sort of thing, isn't it? There's so many kind of things like that, and that's why you have to have proper research and trials on something. Because if you roll something out en masse to thousands of people, millions of people, and then it turns out there was a side effect that could affect a lot of people nobody knows about. Yep, Alexander, we were just because we were bringing up why it's important that drugs are tested properly. It's a Nixie tube clock, Colby. Hype sent it me for free. But let me just put that under there so the wire isn't stretched. So it's a Nixie tube clock. Let me flick the light off so it's a bit darker, like that light at least. Yeah, Nixie tubes. It never quite focuses on them right for the webcam, but... Right, unfortunately, if you're buying one apparently from, you know, like Western companies that make them, they're generally like hundreds of pounds or dollars. I think Hype said, although you can't buy that easily internationally, if you know somebody in China who will buy it for you and then ship it for you, I think they're more like $30 to $40, those. But yeah, they work using vacuum tubes, essentially. So things like that. They're like really old-fashioned tech. But they're really cool in terms of they just look cool, you know, and you can see them in the dark perfectly. It's amazing how many people are on here before that have never seen the fact I always cut my hair really short, because gas masks fit properly and it's cheap. You can do it at home. You don't need to go see a hairdresser that could risk infecting you with anything. As in the old German World War II splinter camo Cisco, I quite like it. I like all the kind of lined camo type ones. But yeah, let's have a look on eBay. I mean, you can get, there's some really cool Nixie tube clocks, don't get me wrong, and some people do really cool DIY ones where, you know, they build them into like old broken technology. Actually, saying that, there is a Nixie clock kit for only £52 on eBay at the moment that looks quite cool. Weirdly, that exact clock looks like it's on a listing here for £156. But yeah, let me just link you to a random Nixie tube clock, just so you can see the kind of thing. Well, it's amazing actually how many of these really expensive ones, just saying that, are these exact same Chinese units, but with the clock just put in another kind of box. I suppose that's a good way of ripping people off, isn't it? If they don't know any better. Buy a load of these for like £30, just basically put this bit inside another unit that looks more retro and then charge more money for it. But yeah, let me just link you to a Nixie tube if I can find a cool looking one that isn't too expensive. I mean, it's going to depend where you are as well. Here we go. Let me link to this one because this is actually a proper Nixie tube thing. It's not, you know, one of the things that people have called it Nixie tube, and it's just like an LCD or LED clock. GP5s were good when they were originally mass produced. The issue is, due to the age of them, there might be problems with the mask. It's difficult to get good modern filters for them. Not really military caps. I've got a few camo ones and like officer type ones, military bushcraft island, but I don't normally collect them. You can actually check my channel for that, but it's since 2012 if you want the quick answer. But yeah, so that's essentially a Nixie tube clock. Obviously, this is when you have to build yourself by the look of it, but I don't know if this one actually comes with the bulbs, but you know, that's essentially what a Nixie tube clock is. Again, there's some. The one I like, I think, is he called Mad Dog Design, something like that, and he gets a load of old Geiger counters and things like that that are broken, and uses the cases to build Nixie tubes on. Let me just search Geiger Nixie and see if I can find any. I mean, you can get actual proper old Geiger counters that had Nixie tube displays, but there's a bloke who basically gets the old counters like that and retrofits them, like, you know, if they're broken, by putting the Nixie tubes in them. So it's just like a Nixie tube clock in an old housing, which is quite cool. There's a lot of little design things, Colby, and production dates and serial numbers and things like that. Here's the thing, Henry. I want to see proper tests on this because a lot of people say they fit, but I've never seen anybody prove it in videos using like smelly substances, if that makes sense. Because it shouldn't actually fit, Henry, because it's not a Ghost filter. They've changed since I've bought a load of them, but essentially don't wave it at people and you're fine. All right, dear love. Yeah, so I'm assuming like what Marcus is saying to you, Henry, is essentially you can screw it on. It probably seems to screw on all right, but it's not making an airtight seal. Because bear in mind, there's quite a lot of, although you can get lots of 40mm NATO and DIN filters, a lot of the time the thickness of the screw and like the plastic or the metal of the filter makes quite a big difference of how well they seem to like thread in or out of a thing. Pressure checking isn't good enough, Henry. You need to check it with something like banana oil, because pressure checking, you can get a master pressure check even if it's not completely airtight. Again, military bushcraft, they're not meant to work on a GP5. I think it's because they made a load of them in DIN, not NATO. DIN is closer to GOST, and because it's a plastic thread, I think it's a GP5 intake, sort of shears it to fit into the actual thing to become airtight. But yeah, like I was saying, you ideally need a fit test kit. I have a fit test kit, but it's a really antiquated one, so I never bother using it because it's a pain in the ass to set up. Well, that's what I was just saying, TXC Gaming. There's a lot of things that seem to work, but in all honesty, if you wanted it for anything serious, get a modern GOST filter for a GOST mask. Better idea, buy a NATO threaded mask, so you can just get the filters without any issue. Yeah, that's true, eat your vegetables. The more O-rings you've got, or better O-rings, the more likely they are to make a good seal. But still, if your life depends on it, get a good mask and just get, good quality filters for it. You don't want to bodge anything like that. Yeah, like military bushcraft, we were just literally saying that does make a difference. Because obviously, the more O-rings where the actual, well, it looks a bit dirty, doesn't it? But the more O-rings where the thread is, the more likely it is to make a good connection. But well, not in novels, AJ, but in terms of books, online resources, there's quite a lot of places you can look for lots of info on masks and things. Do you know what model feature it is, Colby? Anyway, I'll be off fairly soon because I'm quite tired today after a very, very busy day at work. So I should be streaming most days in the week, but not necessarily every day. And some days it might vary a bit on time depending on what's going on. But I can actually show you the exact material military bushcraft, but I don't think it's all that treated unless it's kind of got like a tar type thing on it. But that exact material is... Here's a load of it. This stuff. This is the exact material from a Soviet repair kit. So it's essentially like tape, but it's like fabric tape. But I would assume that it does have some very thin layer of something on it to make it airtight. Essentially, duct tape would also work, It's not meant to be a Breaking Bad cosplay, but everybody brings that up. If I put on one of my sort of chemical suits, it would look even more like a Walter White. But yeah, the people at work used to say I look like Walter White, and saying I've got to cook because they used to say I was like making meth or something in one of the rooms at work, and that everybody was oblivious to it. Tell the model with what, Colby? A GP5? Literally look up the guides for talent, but it's basically you need to know what things they did with GP5s, as in Shum 62s, and not the other Soviet similar masks. Yeah, well, that's because you're always like it, Mike. I think the problem for me is a lot of people, if they haven't seen the fact that I do it often, forget. It is, Elias. It's German Stricktarn or East German Stricktarn, but it's a reproduction, just T-shirt with it on, done by Miltech. I've got some extra old East German gear, but this is just where you could buy, like T-shirts printed in basically any camo. So I wanted a Stricktarn one. Although, again, it makes you look like you've got tits because how the line pattern works, like that. So that's the only problem with it. But I suppose it's more of a pec thing, isn't it? But I just always find that pretty funny, that the line pattern going vertically does kind of an optical illusion. Whether or not they do strict-on legging for women, that might be good. Like give them, really nice arse curves, but I don't know actually. What did he say? I want to read it. Yeah, don't say things like that to that guy because you can literally get sued for saying stuff like that. The thing is, I wouldn't be one of those people that would sue him, but if you say something like that, somebody can literally say, you're slandering me, whatever, I'm going to sue you, and they could possibly win and fuck your life over. But why has this Colby person been hidden? He's literally saying what I was saying. Let's unhide that person. Oh, thank you, Marcus. Not for me, Isaac, but basically a lot of uni students, and I shouldn't be smiling when I say this, but it's darkly comical. Have paid all this money to go to university, and then they're basically being locked in a room and not allowed to leave. Oh, and also you've got some of the really richest unis in the UK that, literally are like on par with the royals of how much money they own and like estate and land, going like, oh, we couldn't possibly offer students anything for cheaper because then we go bankrupt. Offended by what, Marcus? That the fact he was saying about tits? Yeah, Mike, do it on your Teespring if they let you do bras on Teespring. Teespring. I don't know if they do. No, GP5s don't have straps. There are a couple of Soviet masks that did have straps, and a couple of like Shum-style hood masks with straps. Generally, lots of rich people, WTO ASIS, complain about losing money. Oh, I'm so rich, and I will be much richer than you will ever be throughout your entire life, but I am going to complain that while other people are destitute, I can't buy my 10th yacht this year. Those kind of people. I don't have much sympathy for them. There is a switch on the back of it that you press. So if I want to get it back, because I think it's a minute slow, people are saying, there's a button on the back, a bit like setting an alarm clock, where there's just a few different buttons, and you keep. There's also a remote for that one, which is probably on here somewhere buried, and the remote lets you like change the color and everything, but definitely like the red kind of orange brown color is definitely my favorite color on that. Because you can have it in like blue or green, but some colors don't look right with a Nixie tube, because retro Nixie tubes are always that like kind of neon-y purpley red color, because of basically how they work. What, to distract from other things, dear love? You might be right there. Stuff about student lockdowns, OK9. Everybody who's never seen the fact I cut my hair really short before saying, where's your hair gone? What other things have there been? Stuff about the app not working. Probably other conversations. It's not called a Nixon clock. It's called a Nixie tube clock. Technically, Nixie tubes do have an official name because Nixie tube is like a brand name. But let me just type in Nixie tube again, and I'll get you one up. I won't find you the cheapest one. I'll just literally find you a cool looking one. Right, here you go. Here's a really nice looking one, but oh, it's linked too long for YouTube. Typical. Let me see if I can shorten the URL. Why has it made this URL so long? Just give me a minute and I'll see if I can get the same one up. Yeah, that same one I've got with a different case around it is going from 70 to like 120 quid. But yeah, the one I was looking at that I thought does look very nice was this one. I think that looks really nice for that kind of basic wooden box kind of thing, and those tubes sticking out. Yeah, Nixie tube clocks are really nice. Don't get me wrong, it's like, as we were saying, basically, if you're paying lots of money, it's a bit overpriced, because the actual clock and tubes and control units, apparently, if you know somebody in China, they can get you on for like 30 to 40 pounds or dollars. So essentially like this. And then what a lot of people do is they get units like this, they rehouse them, in a different case, but all the electronics are from that unit kind of thing. And then, they charge hundreds of pounds for them because they make the case look a bit fancier. Oh yeah, good thing with a Nixie tube clock, I'll just show you by flicking the light off before I end the stream, is you can always see them in the dark. So they're really good for like kind of bedroom clocks. Obviously, I don't have this one in my bedroom, but obviously on the webcam it might not be that obvious if it looks too bright. But the point is that you're always going to be able to see the time in the dark on a Nixie tube clock because of how they work. Oh yeah, it's actually showing up properly now. But yeah, those are Nixie tubes. Yeah, I was saying that earlier in the stream, AG. With the ones like this, which are sort of computer chip controlled, you can change the colours. But I prefer the red-orange look to them. You can have them like green and other colours. It's just, if you have them on too modern a colour thing, they don't look like retro Nixie tubes anymore. Because the old ones always had that kind of purpley orange-red glow to them. Because, it was kind of like a neon sign. Yeah, that's the thing, OK9. If you know a lot of this stuff, you can do it really cheaply. But I said a lot of people make a lot of money because they just buy the very basic clocks like this. Literally just rehouse them. That's all they're doing. They're taking this off like a case, and putting them in a new case. And then they're going, oh, look at this really cool clock I'm making. But don't get me wrong, sometimes that is cool. It's just the price they charge for them. Because, yeah, I'm just trying to think if I have any old broken Geiger counters, like where you could fit that in it. Because I'd probably do that just as a background display, if possible. Original Nixie tube things, WT, I think were like 1950s, weren't they? Like they were literally always just replaced by LCD and LED screens. That was kind of the tech that replaced them. Like what's on your alarm clock today, or a digital watch, that kind of display. But before then, they were the closest thing to a digital display, using analog technology. It's why in all the Fallout games, that's like what the numbers on the Pip-Boy show up as, because they're meant to be Nixie tubes. It's, all the old cool vacuum tube and kind of cathodes and all that kind of technology, as opposed to like, microcomputers and all that. Yeah, that'd be a cool OK9, because the thing is, if you can find a broken bit of old technology for spares and repairs, like an old radio, any of those cool old vintage things, that would be a really nice housing for, I think, the numbers to look really cool in. Let me just see if I can find, like, the guy who did the Radiac Nixie tube. Again, this is one where, like, the numbers stick out, but just as a kind of comparison thing. If I can get a full screen picture of it. Oh, it's Bad Dog Designs, not Mad Dog Designs, that's why. But yeah, let me get you a picture of it. Again, I wouldn't recommend doing this unless, you've got a completely broken old bit of technology. But see, like, the Mark II Radiac in the background there. That's where a guy's, converted one into a Nixie tube clock. That guy does test equipment clocks. Yeah, here we go. Some of these are pretty good. You can actually see a lot of them, though, where this guy does it. A lot of them, for like the 200-odd quid ones, are literally the old, like it's just literally that same unit as that, just rehoused in another case. But I like the DP75 and like DP66 Nixie tube clocks. But again, I wouldn't spend 300 to 500 quid on literally a Geiger counter that has an Nixie tube clock coming out of it. Haven't you looked at the news, Mackenzie? Basically, lots of students, not all of them, but lots of uni students around the UK are being locked into their accommodation and not allowed to leave because of corona. Oh, everything's so fucked. Crossbones, a skull sign. Oh, you mean that one? Well, originally it's electricity substation sign saying, warning, danger of death by electrocution. But it's basically the text on it has been changed to say death to Western spies. Weirdly, Oliver, I have a feeling cattle prods are legal in the UK, but while stun guns are not. I don't know why, but it's something to be very dodgy to carry around on you, a cattle prod or any of those sort of stun gun equipments, even if you get the ones that technically fall into legal things. But yeah, I'll head off in a minute because I've got a bit of a stomach ache and everything, and I'm pretty tired from a long day at work. There's an RPK behind me, if you can see that. Was that what you're looking at? That's an RPK. I can't pick it up and show it you on the video because YouTube's new policy on guns. If you're looking at something else, I don't know what you would be looking at, but yeah, that's an RPK. It's a Serbian or Yugoslavian M72 RPK. Technically, I think the M72 AB1 it's called because it's the weird model that has the underfolder, like, the underlever stock, but with an RPK barrel, which is kind of excessive. It doesn't have its bipod. If it had the bipod, it would be there, but the bipod's been removed. Apparently, they were pretty popular during the breakup of Yugoslavia to get the RPKs without bipod and then use them basically as a kind of longer range AK because obviously they were a bit more accurate due to the longer barrel on an RPK and them being a bit heavier. It's a Diak. It was sold cheaply because it was probably used in some sort of genocide during the Yugoslavian wars. So it's got an interesting bit of history behind it, but it's pretty fucked up. But people want to spend loads and loads and loads, like thousands, on German MP40s and things that might have been used to shoot civilians or whatever. And that's just the Yugoslavian equivalent. But it was cheaper than buying one that was probably just sat in a warehouse. Personally, I don't think if I get corona, it'll be that bad, Cobby. I hope not. I'm more worried, would I give it to a relative that would die from it, that kind of thing. All the nations were fucked up in the Yugoslavian civil wars. Serbs just got the worst sort of, reputation of it because they had the biggest army. But we had some refugees when I went to secondary school that were from some of the Yugoslavian countries. And if you weren't a Croatian, the Croatians might have been doing bad stuff to you, If you weren't Bosnian, the Bosniaks or whatever, or the Bosnian and Herzegovinians did bad things. Everybody did bad things in that war. And, there's no excuse for any of it. The people who did the war crime should be held accountable for what they did, regardless of which country they came from. It's just a point I like to make because it's a bit unfair, when only Serbia gets victimized. But, any people who did bad stuff in any stuff like that should be held to account. Yeah, was he Croatian, that General Lewis? I can't remember. He wasn't on the Serb ones, was he? Because he wasn't what's it, Ratko Mladic or what's the other one? Karadzic? Radovan Karadzic? Because there was Slobodan Milosevic as well, wasn't he? But I think he died quite a while ago. But yeah, the point was that there were lots of war criminals during that because it was just one of those horrible civil wars where basically when everything broke apart, not everybody from each country, obviously, but some people from each country all basically were doing that. We are pure kind of good ethnic people. All the other country, people around us are like the subhumans, that typical bullshit you get with all that sort of stuff where innocent people get killed because of other people's stupid ideas. Anyway, I'll finish the stream now. It's been quite a good stream. Thanks for chatting, everybody. Even if lots of it was like, oh, you're a sluthead. I don't think they put it like that, but still. Although there was that weird one like, oh, did you get that cut at the medical centre? Right. Just as I go off then, I'm still waiting for all my other bits to come with it. If you're wondering why the needle's shot up, it's because I've got the strontium 90 bit in the thing turned to the check source mode. But yes, I have an IMD5. If I was just going to say, if you have the choice between buying a DP5V and an IMD5 for similar money, always go for an IMD5. Just, you know. Oh, the cool thing of this is it actually does the thing where you can hear it clicking even if you've not got headphones on. I don't know if you can hear that, but it's like the DP60. The DP75 does the same thing, where it makes kind of like a low pitch beep noise. Well, I don't know if that will actually be heard over the thing, but yeah. Is the battery test working properly? Yep. Yeah, it's a good unit. It's just I'm waiting for all the accessories to come with it because they didn't turn up with it. Yeah, Nixie tubes are cool. Yeah, but see you everybody. Otherwise, I'll be stuck here for ages talking about the IMD5 in my hand now. But yeah, see you all. Have a good evening. All right, goodbye. If I can find where the stream end button is now, because that often jumps around to different places on different live streams. There we go. Right, bye.